Hi gaming guys, and welcome to episode 26 of GT Masters. And in a small side note, the hay fever season is kind of beginning now, so some of my videos may start to sound a little bit more groggy, the commentary of course, but that's pretty much something that just happens at this period every year. So for those who are new to the channel, that's what you can expect. But getting straight into this particular review, we're reviewing a car which many people kind of overlook, and you can kind of understand why, because it's a Nissan GT-R, and there are of course a lot of Nissan GT-R race cars on GT6. Overall though, I would say that this is possibly the best all-round racing version of the GT-R in the game. Now, I know a lot of people are a big fan of the fictional R35 touring car, which has that kind of pearlescent paint. And that is a very good car, but there are some very specific reasons why I prefer this particular model. For a start, this is, and this will probably surprise quite a few people, but this is actually the fastest official GT class race car in the game. The only car in this series which is faster is the Ferrari FXX, which of course is not an actual race car. It's a one-make, customer-only racing series, not an official GT class racing machine. If you include actual, legitimate GT class machines, this is, by a significant margin, the fastest of the series. This car is capable of 282 miles per hour under its own power. Now, it doesn't have NOS, so it's not quite as quick as the road-going GTR, but it's surprising just how similar to the road-going GTR it actually is. Now, this particular car is the N24 racing version, the Nürburgring 24-hour race, and it's the Academy edition, because there are a couple of different N24 models. You've got the Scholl's Motorsport version, which has the big wing and the body kit, etc., and you've got this one, which is much more toned down and similar to the road car. Now, this car has a pretty strong spec. It's not the most powerful of the GTRs, funnily enough, considering that it is the fastest. It has, like all GTRs, a 3.8 litre engine, and puts out 914 horsepower. So a lot, but not as much as the other GTRs, most of them anyway. It also puts out just under 700 foot-pounds of torque, and is a little bit heavier than some other GTRs. Well, considerably heavier in fact, 1,367 kilos, meaning that it weighs a similar amount, again, to the road versions. Now, it puts out 667 horsepower per tonne, which is decent enough, and the PP is very good, 641, significantly lower than most of the other GTR race cars. And that's a good thing because, as I said, this is the quickest GT class car in the game. So to have it at such a relatively low PP, that's a good 20 to sometimes 40 PP lower than many of the other cars in this series with that kind of power. So to be that much a lower PP with such performance potential can be a significant advantage, and somewhat of a racing sleeper to some degree. Now, the car costs 500,000 credits, so it's not quite as cheap as, say, the R35 touring car, but it is significantly cheaper than many of the other cars in this series, oftentimes less than half the price. And considering that it's the fastest of the series of the official cars, that's pretty impressive value. And this car is also all-wheel drive, which is a significant advantage for a race car, especially in worse conditions, such as if you clip the curb or in wet weather. That's a significant advantage to have. It also means that the car is naturally easier to use and to get used to for beginners. Now, if you've never driven this car, the best way I would say to describe the steering and the handling and the drivability is if you imagine the normal road version, say the Spec V for instance, but imagine it as having slightly heavier steering and being just a little bit more tight and taut and focused. That's basically what this car feels like a heightened version of the Spec V. So not a bad thing at all. This is a full-on official race car, so you can use it in racing lobbies, and the top speed advantage means that you can absolutely dominate tracks such as the Le Mans. You can completely destroy all other GT class machines for pure top speed. It's a good 15 to 20 miles per hour quicker than the vast majority of the other cars in this series. And being all-wheel drive, it's quicker off the line, has far less wheel spin out of corners, and has far more of a chuckability factor, which I refer to some cars as having, where you can throw the car into a corner and it will not lose control anywhere near as easily as a rear-wheel drive car would. All of these things point to the fact that this is one of the best GT class cars in the game. Certainly one of the best GTRs in the game, and that's, going back to the start of the video, why I would say this is probably my favourite of the GTR race cars. It's just such a good all-round package. Now, to be clear, this car isn't going to beat every other GT car around every track. It just doesn't have the handling capabilities for that. But on tracks which allow you to use its advantages, it is a brilliant car. And if you don't own this car, I would definitely recommend it, because it's a fantastic weapon to have in your garage. But that's it overall for this particular review. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.